Good morning. Thank you for joining us today for our third Family Engagement Workshop. My name is Sonia Samaniego, and I am the Family Engagement Coordinator. Today, we are going to be joined by a panel of parents or representatives that represent several different supporting agencies that support families of children who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind. These agencies are going to include Raising Special Kids, the Arizona Schools for the Deaf and Blind Deaf Mentor Program, and the Arizona Deaf Blind Project. So before we get started, I just want to make sure that I cover a few housekeeping items for today's presentation. We will have ASL interpretation, which is available. If you need to pin an interpreter, please feel free to do so. Also, we have live captioning services available in English and Spanish. I believe that is going to be placed into the chat for the English version. And then also we did place the Spanish captioning in the chat as well. There is an external bridge line for those who need any Spanish interpretation. And at this point, I don't see anyone who's needing that, but we can certainly monitor that. Also, any questions or comments can be added to the chat, and we will have time at the end of the presentation to answer your questions. This presentation is also going to be available for later viewing, and we will post that on our website as well as on our YouTube. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for adding those to the chat. So we're going to go ahead and also, if you are not speaking, we can just ask you to keep your cameras off. This will help with the accessibility of our interpreters. So I will go ahead and have our panel. I will ask you to come on screen one at a time, just for some quick introductions as we go through all of this. Megan or Kathy, either one of you. Let's see who's on here. Let me make my screen a little bit bigger. There's Kathy. Okay, perfect. And Megan, can you come on, and Christy, just so that we can see our panelists? Wonderful. Thank you all for being here today. So we will go ahead and I'll ask some questions of our panelists, and then for the accessibility purposes, again, if you guys can just make sure to keep your cameras off, and this will help with anyone who needs to utilize the ASL interpreters. But it is just a pleasure having you all here today. To be able to provide information to our families and parents. As I look at who's joining, I really like to see that some of our community members are here as well. So I am just going to, and you all have a copy of the questions as well in the event that something is missed here. But I'm going to start with Chrissy. If you can tell us, provide us with just a brief overview of your program and your agency, and then describe your personal and or your professional role in partnering with parents of children who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sonia. So happy to be here. Forgive my kid right here next to me. My name is Christina, but I go by Chrissy, and this is my name sign. I am the Deaf Mentor Program Coordinator here in Arizona, and I work with the students from Arizona State Schools for the Deaf. The program is a statewide program that provides services to families with deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind babies up to the age of 5. We work with those families as they're interested in learning ASL and interested in learning resources on how to communicate with their child in ASL. The program currently serves over 106 families. And the program has different services that can be provided to families, and I will go over those now. We do in-home visitations, and right now we are transitioning from virtual back to in-person. So we're currently providing both services, the hybrid model. We do 1 hour per session, and it really depends on the family's language goal. We will often meet once a month or weekly, depending on the family's needs. We provide American Sign Language classes, and we have 4 different classes. We have beginner, intermediate, advanced, and deaf studies. We also host events. Things have been slow during the pandemic, but we are excited to get back into person and be hosting more events for families. Our team also produces YouTube videos in American Sign Language. We produce American Sign Language stories in order for parents and families to subscribe so their children can watch stories in American Sign Language. In our program, we do partner with the Arizona State Schools for the Deaf and Blind Early Learning Program, or ELP, and families are in that program from birth to 3 as they're receiving those initial referrals from AZIPS, the Arizona Early Intervention Program. And the family then will express interest in our program, and I will get that referral as the supervisor and determine who the best fit would be as far as a deaf mentor goes. Oftentimes, I'll meet with the family first before anyone else to communicate with them and talk about our program, talk about my experience as a deaf person, etc. For those who are 3, 4, and 5, it's a little bit different in our situation because they will then transition to preschool at the age 4 and 5, which means that my relationship that I have will then transfer over to the preschool, with those preschool teachers. Now, there are some exceptions. We only serve birth to 5 students who are under the ASDB umbrella, meaning they could be at the ASDB Tucson campus, they could be at the preschool, they could be at the Phoenix campus preschool, or they could be in a school district that has a partnership with ASDB for itinerant services. We can provide services to all of those families. I could go on, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
Wonderful, Chrissy. Thank you for that. And love the fact that your son joined in there. He seems to love the camera. So visitors are certainly welcome. So thank you, Chrissy. I'll move on to Megan.
Thanks, Sonia. This is Megan, and good morning, everyone. My sign name is Megan, with M up by the lips. Thank you for inviting me to be on the panel, and I just want to give you a little bit of information about the Arizona Deaf Blind Project. We serve families and educators of children and youth from birth all the way up to age 22 who have any form of combined vision and hearing loss. And so I think a lot of times when we hear or see the word deafblind, we might have a certain picture in our mind of what that means. A lot of us think quite often of Helen Keller, but I just want to make it clear that we serve families and educators of children with any level of vision loss and hearing loss that is combined. And we exist quite simply because deafblindness is one of the lowest of the low incidence disabilities. And the needs of children with combined vision and hearing loss are really quite different from a child who just has, who is deaf or hard of hearing, or a child who is blind with low vision. You know, when a child even just has just a little bit of vision loss combined with just a little bit of hearing loss, it has a really multiplicative impact. You'll hear people in the field of deafblindness say it's never deaf plus blind, it's actually deaf times blind in terms of, you know, the impact of the child's access to information. And so myself and then 2 other deafblind specialists in Arizona, their names are Pat and Amy. We work all over the state, not just serving kids who go to ASDB, any child in our state that has that combination of vision and hearing loss, to really work with families and maybe professionals who work with that family's child to learn about the impact of combined vision and hearing loss, and to, you know, determine, especially if families, what their needs might be so that they feel like they have a really tight bond and trusted relationship with their child, and have a sense of what their specific and individual needs are, so that they really feel empowered to be that person in their child's life who is the deafblind specialist, really. We at the project understand that the families are that consistent piece in their child's life that really needs access to information, maybe agencies and organizations that are trained in deafblindness, to connect to other families who have deafblind children, to help them tell their story in a way that empowers everyone on the team to really notice their child and their needs, and how to serve them best.
Wonderful. Thank you, Megan. And I'll go ahead, and I'm just spanning my screen here. Kathy, it looks like Kathy is still here with us. Heidi from Arizona Hands and Voices, I don't think was able to join us. So Kathy.
Hi, I'm Kathy Gray Mangerson, the Education Systems Administrator for Raising Special Kids. We are the Parent Training Information Center in the state. So any parent who has a child with any disability, birth to 26 years of age, can contact us. Our resources are all free. We talk to them on the phone. We provide many 2-hour workshops that are free that they can register for. We can, if they send us their IEP or their child's 504 plan, we can get together and go through that plan. We also connect them with resources, local support groups in the community like Hands and Voices or Deafblind Project. We also answer questions every single day about the eligibility for systems like supplemental security information, or behavioral health, or Arizona long-term care, or anything along those lines. So we try to say to them, if you have any questions about anything to do with your child's disability, and we cover all disabilities, not just children who are hearing impaired, then please contact us. All of our services are free. The parent can call us directly. They can do a self-referral on our webpage, whatever is easiest for them. But we are here to help them on the journey of having a child with a disability. And most of us who work here have a child with a disability. So we've experienced it personally as well as professionally.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kathy. Such great resources. And so we just want to learn a little bit more about each one of our panelists. So I'll just, since there's the 3 of you, I'll just go in that same order. If we can just be consistent there, it'll help as well. So I'll move on to our next question, and I'll start with Chrissy. If you could just, each one of you share, you've kind of touched on a couple of things, but share your lived experience, either as a parent or a professional, in your role, and how has your role impacted, within your program or your agency, how has that really impacted your role as you are in your role currently?
Great. Okay, well, first of all, I would like to comment that, I identify myself as a fully deaf person. So that definitely does have an impact on my role here. Um, Secondly, when we have discussions with our families and about what services that we provide, once we meet, they say, we've never met a deaf person before, or a deaf adult. Maybe they had a high school classmate or something, but then we can go ahead and explain our experiences and share. A lot of times, because of their lack of experience with deaf adults, they get a very good understanding of where we're from and who we are. In our program, we get people's attention because we have a full team of deaf and hard of hearing people who have a variety of backgrounds. Some grew up orally, some grew up learning sign language later in life. Some of them, grew up in fully deaf families and with full access to communication and ASL all their lives. So the parents, they can understand the struggles from our experiences so that they can understand their child's how they might struggle as well. So it's important to have language access first and foremost at an early age, and we do definitely emphasize that. And that's, yep, there you go. So thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy. And yes, it is wonderful just to be able to have those deaf role models for families to be able to ask questions and interact. And there's so many things that you definitely bring, to be able to share with families. So thank you for that. Megan, I'll move on to you.
Okay, thanks, Sonia. This is Megan speaking. And my experience, or how I kind of came to the Deafblind Project, was kind of rooted in really quite simply panic because before I was on the project, I was a speech language pathologist and still am. And I worked in a school for the deaf and blind. And even though I had a lot of education and training, I had none specific to deaf blindness. And so in 2005, I walked into a classroom with a young child with Charge syndrome. And then the very next classroom I walked into was with a child who had cerebral palsy, who was profoundly deaf and had cortical vision impairment. As a professional, I had no idea what to do. I had been trained in very visual systems of communication and supports and strategies, and those simply were not accessible to the students I was serving. So I had to go out and seek some support and help and training, and I found the Arizona Deafblind Project. And so I participated in their 2-year intensive intervener training, which we still offer. And I gathered, along with other team members, service providers, I gathered really a set of skills and knowledge specific to serving students with combined vision and hearing loss. And we all learned how to tailor our approaches differently than what we had learned to do previously in our training and education. And so really, we came away with an idea of how to observe a child who's deafblind and really piece apart with other team members what those individual needs are, and then to craft really a very specific and individualized plan where we prioritize a deafblind student's access to communication first and foremost, access to information within their environment, and then access to relationships and social interaction. And so about 3 years ago, then I transitioned over to become a deafblind specialist with the project, and to instead of working directly with kids, I now work with their service providers and families. And I feel like I can identify with sometimes that sense of like, what do I do? I have no idea where to start, because I very much was in that position quite some time ago. So that's just a little bit about my personal experience and how I came to the project.
Wonderful. Thank you, Megan. And yes, that is exactly why, we have these resources available, because we know that by really providing that additional support and guidance to our professionals and our community partners who are directly working with these families is really going to strengthen that relationship, guiding them, into the different roads and journeys that they may be taking. So thank you, Megan. Kathy?
I have an adult son with a specific learning disability who's married, has 3 children, makes more money than I do. And his oldest child, who is 5.5, is also on an IEP and in developmental preschool. So personally, I am dealing with special ed disability issues for the 2nd generation. I've been doing this work for 14 years in the state of Arizona. I also live in Tucson. So I've been working with parents at ASDB at both of the schools at ASDB for 14 years and supporting them and understanding the disability and how it affects the child and how we might give them more information about school or any of the resources in the community. So our credibility, those of us that work there, have walked in the steps of those parents, and we truly understand what they're dealing with. Whereas we may not understand the disability as well as the parent does, we certainly understand all the systems, can help them with the systems and get the resources that they need.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kathy. And yes, that is exactly why we have invited, Raising Special Kids, because they are a huge component of really supporting our families and walking through the different systems of care that are necessary, to be able to understand, some of the different things that are involved in education and accessibility and the different options. So thank you, Kathy, for sharing that information. Okay, so we're going to go back around and start with Chrissy. And Chrissy, if you could just tell us how parents learn more about the programs that are available for that you have to offer through your agency for children who are deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind. If you can tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. We have a website, a web page under ASDB. You can do www, the website for ASDB, and it will be under the mentoring program. All the information will be provided there. It's only in English right now, and we are slowly adding other languages. And the mentor program, they offer on the website, they offer the YouTube channel explaining the mentoring program. And I hope that it's in Spanish there as well. We do have infographics, a brochure that's available. So really, if you happen to be on campus, you can pick up one of those brochures there and take it with you. Other options, if parents happen to already have services with the early intervention program, with the up to 3-year-old program, you can ask the people there and say that you're interested in getting more information about our Deaf Mentor programming. They can share there. Yeah, so those are different ways that you can reach us. So thank you.
Thank you, Chrissy. Megan.
Thanks. This is Megan speaking, and I'm going to put our website link in the chat. And you can find us at azdeafblindproject, all one word, .org. And you'll find all of our contact information on our website, a description of our services, how to access training, and how to refer a child who has combined vision and hearing loss. And we want, everyone to know that anyone can refer a child with combined vision and hearing loss. So it can be a a medical provider, an educator, a family member, a neighbor. The important thing is to identify who those kids are and make sure their families are connected to services that they're eligible for. I think I speak on behalf of the other two deafblind specialists, as well as myself, when we find just direct communication and contact with families is really the most productive. And so we really encourage folks to reach out to us directly, either by phone, virtually, in person, et cetera, so we can figure out what specific needs might be.
Thank you, Megan. Kathy, can you tell us a little bit about the process for parents?
Sure. We do lots and lots of marketing all over the state. There are 3 of us based in Southern Arizona. We have 2 of us in Northern Arizona, and then our main office is in Phoenix. But we talk to schools, and we talk to behavioral health agencies and agencies such as the Division of Developmental Disabilities and Voc Rehab, many others. We get out there and talk to support groups in the community, like the autism societies and things like that. So any opportunity that we have to go to an event or speak to a group about what our services are, since they're free and they're good for any parent throughout the state of Arizona, we take advantage of that. And we hope those people are referring them to our website or to call us. We currently have a partnership with the Deaf Blind Project. So we're working to create ways that their parents can take advantage of our services. We basically are there to help parents. This time of the year, you can imagine all the calls are about IEPs and 504 plans, but we can also set parents up with an experienced parent and talk to that person a couple of times, about 4 or 5 times over a 2-month period. So we try whatever we can to get the word out, to let parents know that we're here and that we're a free service, and we're happy to answer their questions about systems or connect them to the resources in the state that they really need to know about, such as both of them on the call today.
Thank you, Kathy. I always love to just hear about the new connections and the partnerships, and all these different agencies really just having MOUs or partnerships, or just learning more about how we can continue to partner together and serve these families and really just build that stronger foundation. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So Chrissy, you talked about how there's, website and things like that. Can you tell me a little bit about, is there an actual application process where parents have to be eligible for the Deaf Blind Project, or does that happen in-house? How can you just tell me a little bit more about that for families who are interested?
Thank you. Yeah, great question. We do have a form that can be found online, and I'll actually, after these comments, I'll post the link in the chat. There are a few different things to keep in mind. If a child is birth to 3, parents can reach out to us directly, but we will have them then reach out to the early learning program, birth to 3. So we always ask families to just contact the early learning program first, birth to 3, if they have a teacher who's already working with them. That way we can, they can talk over our program with the parents first, just to make sure the parents understand that the program is for language goals, and we want to make sure that the parents have language goals for their deaf, hard of hearing, or deafblind child. If they're interested in our services, then the teacher will make that referral to me. Now, if there's a child who's 3, 4, or 5, the parents can either self-refer, or the preschool teacher can make the referral to me. And the form is quite simple. We just ask for the age of the child. We ask for their identity, whether they identify as deaf, hard of hearing, deaf blind. We ask if they're already working with the teacher or not. That'll help us understand maybe if they're a newer student, maybe there's someone who hasn't even been entered in the system. And then I receive that form. I then reach out, and that's when we start the conversation. It's pretty simple. And I will put that link in the chat now.
Thank you, Chrissy. Megan, if you can just tell us a little bit more. I know there's so much, and for those of us who have done it for so many years, and we can walk through, but sometimes for parents, we just really want to give them a little bit more information on any barriers that they might face. Can you tell us a little bit more about that application?
Sure. Thanks, Sonia. And this is Megan speaking again. And we have a referral straight off of our website. But that said, you can also just call us and we'll do an intake with the family over the phone or over Zoom, or we can work with that family's a service provider from the team to get the child referred over to the Deaf Blind Project. One of the things we are charged with doing from the federal government is maintaining a registry of any child birth to 22 who's with combined vision and hearing loss in our state. We do not collect personally identifying information. We just keep the child's initials and just a set of characteristics about their sensory loss. So that we can maintain the registry and make sure we're connecting folks to the right services and to other families maybe who might have children with combined vision and hearing loss. One of the most frequently asked questions we get from families is, they haven't actually had a verified diagnosis of hearing loss or of vision loss. Would they still be eligible to get on your registry or to get services? And the answer to that is yes. We will put a child on the deafblind registry and provide services to the families and service providers as long as that child functions as if they're having both vision and hearing loss. And what we do also is can help provide support in getting that diagnosis verified through a medical provider with the help of, in many cases, the early intervention teachers, and to kind of help the family navigate those systems so that they do get, a documented hearing and vision loss. Just wanted to put that out there in case families are wondering, well, I'm not going to refer yet because they don't have that specific diagnosis yet. And we do still take those referrals.
Thank you, Megan. We'll move on to Kathy.
So parents can pick up the phone and call us. That's the most common way. And they call in to the receptionist who will take their information, put that person in our database. And then one of us who talks to parents will call that parent within a 24-hour period. We also get many referrals from professionals who refer families. Families can also go to the website and refer themselves and send us an email, and then we'll call them back. So there's a variety of ways to get to us. There's no application. You can call if that's easier, you can email if that's easier, or an agency you work with, a behavioral health agency, the Division of Developmental Disabilities, a school, a doctor, somebody may refer you to us, and then we'll pick up the phone and call you from that. So pretty simple to reach us. We have a Phoenix number, we have an 800 number, so parents all over the state can do that. But the services are free and there's no application.
Thank you for that clarification, Kathy. I know sometimes applications can be daunting to families, and so we're always looking to find out more information about that process and how we can also assist with that. As you mentioned earlier, all the different processes and systems, again, can be a little overwhelming, so I appreciate that information. So the last question that we have here before we open it up to our Q&A session. So we'll start with Chrissy. You mentioned having a lot of different things available to families. Can you tell us about some of the things that you have available and accessible to families? And are they available, through the ASL videos, in large print? And if families need to access that information, how can they go about getting that as, things transition back to in person as well?
Thank you for that question. I do have some thoughts to share. As I mentioned earlier, we are transitioning back into in-person. We are still doing some hybrid home visits, some Zoom visits, but we are doing some in-person. We are identifying those families that use spoken English versus those families that use spoken Spanish. We do have trilingual interpreting services available at ASDB that we can utilize, especially during that first or second meeting. Our goal, though, is for families to learn ASL rather than relying on interpreters. So we want to make sure after those first couple of appointments that we're communicating directly with families. We do create lesson plans in English and in Spanish. And those lesson plans are generally in the form of a PowerPoint that the families can utilize. They can pull those up, or we will bring our laptop and pull them up so the families can see them as we're going through the lesson. We do have ASL videos, and we are blessed to have staff who identify as Hispanic and staff who communicate in Spanish, and they can also communicate in American Sign Language. So we have that resource that's available for families to access. We do have as much information available as in English as we do in Spanish, but we do have some families who are Arabic speaking, and we are hoping in the future to add new resources for those families. We, as a team, just learned how to use an app that can translate texts into other languages. And so that's something that we have been using more frequently. All of our materials can be printed in English or Spanish or large print. When working with individuals who are deafblind, we are now working closely with the Arizona Deafblind Project. We're not quite there yet because we haven't seen many requests, but we are starting to see more and more individuals in our program. And we're just looking forward to more ways to provide full access to everyone.
Thank you, Chrissy. We'll move on to Megan.
Thanks. This is Megan speaking, and we're very similar to what Chrissy just described, and that is probably because we are housed as a deafblind project on the Arizona State School for the Deaf and Blind campus, even though we serve everyone statewide. And so we do have access to a full-time Spanish interpreter and ASL interpreter for whatever the family's needs may be in terms of accessing information or accessing the project staff. We try to make sure that all of our documents, flyers, information, again, training resources are in both English and Spanish. And then we strive also for universal access in our trainings and our presentations. And of course, meet any access needs that we know about ahead of time. So I hope that answers that question for you all.
Yes, thank you, Megan. That's really helpful, just so families know, what they can access and where they need to ask for some additional guidance. Kathy?
So on our webpage, we have a Spanish webpage as well, and everything is listed on Spanish. About a third of the employees in the organization speak Spanish. So a monolingual Spanish speaker could get to one of those right away. All of our workshops are given in English and Spanish. We have a Facebook live event once a month in English, once a month in Spanish. We have a YouTube page where parents can see videos and that type of thing. I'm part of the Arizona Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. They have a refugee roundtable that we do. So we have videos on our website that committee put together for refugees. So we have videos in Farsi and Swahili and other languages I can't even remember at this point. That committee also put together about 6 documents about special ed and evaluations and 504 plans and those kinds of things. And those are all linked on our documents. And if we do need to speak to a parent who uses ASL, then we have an interpretation service that we use for that. And then if we need to speak to a parent who doesn't speak English or Spanish, but speaks some other language, then we use Language Line for that. So we try to have the services to reach any parent who might speak any language in the state to give them the information that they might need. But a lot of those resources are on our website. We have a whole refugee page for all the languages. The 6 or 7 languages that the refugees assigned to Arizona are on those pages, and there are some videos about raising special kids in those 6 or 7 languages, and then all the things that we put together from the Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. But Spanish is the thing that Spanish is the language that we interpret all of our documents and workshops and events that we do in Spanish.
Wonderful. This is such great information. So actually we have plenty of time now for some Q&As, and I actually have a few questions coming through already, just because we have one panelist who wasn't able to join us, so we've got a little bit of extra time here. And so the question comes through is, can each of you briefly explain 1 to 2 activities that kids or students and or families can expect either at a home visit or out in the community, really just to meet those goals that the family might be looking at. We'll just go starting again with Christy and go through our panelists as well.
Sure. Well, since our program focuses on language and language access, I can just give you a summary of one common one thing that we use here. We do it with young babies, and we start with like, these are easy signs for younger babies and little kids to use. So additional words, would be like eat, want, don't want, like, don't like, words that are commonly used inside the home. And we show the parents a list of those. And we show them ASL gloss, meaning we show them in ASL word order, not English word order, how they would sign it. So basic sentences, and we show them this is how you would sign so that they can match the sign with the words. And then we also try to teach parents how to interact with their child appropriately, like adding, a tap on the shoulder, or, to encourage the parents to make sure that the deaf child is looking at them. And, when they ask them, would you like to eat? Or would you want food? We discuss the importance of facial expressions, and that's really a good place to start. And from there, we add on and build on to more complex concepts, and hopefully later they become skilled. That's our goal.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christy. Megan, I'll move on to you.
Sure. This is going to be different for every family that we work with. There isn't a kind of a one-size-fits-all approach. in deaf blindness because the needs of the children are just so highly varied and individualized. I will say some common activities that we focus on are just building a bond with children, and making sure the child knows that there are people they can have relationships with that are based on trust and respect. And then we really work to help families set up environments that are really predictable and organized so that things don't happen randomly to a child or in a way that would be surprising or unexpected. And so that might be something like teaching families to use touch cues. So, getting dressed, just tapping on a foot to indicate to the child, I'm about to put your sock on. Or, just tapping on the child's hips to let them know we're about to go change your diaper. Providing access to other people and things in the environment using a technique we call hand under hand. So the child places their hand on the family members and the family can show them what even exists in the environment or how you might use objects and materials functionally. Or most importantly, as Chrissy described, having hands-on language. If the child needs to access ASL in tactile ways, how to work with families to talk about some of those communication options. Most importantly, kids who are deafblind, they have a lot of really unique interests, especially sensory wise. And so really helping the family identify those likes so that they can bring those forward to educators and kind of get a big picture of the child, kind of that holistic view, and help families really storytell about their child so that folks who were like me, who had never worked with a deafblind child, can see the big picture and see the child as a whole person who just happens to have unique needs related to access. So that's a great question.
Thank you, Megan. We'll move on to Kathy.
So like I said earlier, we're the Training and Information Center for the state of Arizona, and our job is to work mostly with parents to help them learn to advocate for their child. But we do some things with certain groups. So transition youths who are 16 and above in school, we work with a couple of organizations. The USAID at the University of Arizona, University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disability, and Diversability Incorporated. And quarterly or so, we've had them through Zoom, but we've had events for parents and transition youth to really talk about what's going to happen when you leave high school. We've had Voc Rehab come and talk to them. So that's the group of youth that we're working with them and their parents to try to get them prepared for the next stage in life. We also once a year have an event called Special Day for Special Kids, and it's for families and everything is free. So there are, jumping castles and train rides and things like that. And all the food is free, and there are vendors there, other agencies there, so parents can get information. So it's our event for all of our parents who can go and have a fun day with kids, learn information, do some fun things. So that's an event that we hold that is for children and for families as well. We do a couple of other things, but most of our information, most of the events and things that we hold are mainly for parents to give them those resources, to give them that training or that information that they really need.
Yes, Special Day for Special Kids is certainly a hit. Every year, families look forward to that event. So I always try to make sure that as soon as we know the dates, that we get that out to families. It is really a day where parents can just connect and have fun with the entire family. And just the environment is so welcoming because there's just so much help and support for the families to enjoy a day with their kids. So we're going to utilize this time for additional questions. I do have some that have come through to me as well. So if you have any other questions, feel free to put them into the chat. But the one that's come through, I've got a couple of here. Do any of your programs offer family and youth activities such as weekend retreats, support groups, or any summer camps? So I'll start with Chrissy.
Hi, yes. Yes, we have several different activities that we offer. Right now, when we start back in person, I'm hopefully soon, a lot of things will happen before more spread of COVID anyway, I hope so. So ASL Immersion Camp, we offer that. We try to start, we started that 3 years ago, and we've done that twice now. Well, during COVID, obviously that prevented it, but it's a camp for a weekend. The families come, the parents and the kids have separate activities that are offered. And, we have, of course, people who are skilled in working with both children and adults, and they're separate. They offer separate activities. We hope to see more people there. In Snowflake in the summer, we have every year we have it's the second Snowflake Family Festival. And that's during the winter holiday activity, and that's an all-day event. A lot of families come, they have different activities set up. The kids can play, get awards. They meet assigning Santa Claus, different things. It's a really great ASL environment for parents, especially to come and practice their skills. And we have volunteers, staff. We have a lot of people that are there working. We also host another activity. They're play dates that we host, and so as they come up, we try to meet those, develop activities to meet the family's needs, and if they're interested in learning about any deaf professionals, we often will try to set up meetings with deaf professionals who are in different jobs, like deaf authors or whatever. So we do try to make sure that parents have an opportunity to learn about their child and also meet others who are in the same situations.
Megan.
Thanks. This is Megan speaking. And one event that's highly, highly popular with the Deaf Blind Project is every year annually, pre-pandemic and hopefully in 2023, we host what's called a family music experience. It's historically been at the Foundation for Blind Children, but every spring we invite all of our families to gather together, and we set up different stations. This is the brainchild of one of our parents who has 2 children who are deafblind here in Arizona. And she really just, had this idea to create this family music experience, and it just kind of grew and grew and grew to kind of a highlight of the year for us, but also for families and their kids with combined vision and hearing loss. That said, we also offer some disability-specific family support events and groups, especially related to families whose children have CHARGE syndrome, or families whose children have Usher syndrome. And what we find is those families really, really want to connect to other families of those kids with pretty low incidence genetic syndromes. But then we're also here as a project to, if the child wants to attend like a summer camp, for example, maybe like Camp Abilities, which, really caters to students with who are blind and low vision, or, the ASDB literacy camp. We're here to help support staff in really setting up camp experiences that are accessible to a deafblind participant or camper. So that's, we work with programs that already exist. They may not be deafblind specific, but we can help the staff make it as an accessible experience as possible.
That is wonderful. And that's actually the second part of the question is if we do not offer summer camps or if your program doesn't, are there any camps that can accommodate my child's needs? So Kathy, I know that you guys work mostly with parents, but is there some other things that you can share as far as activities and retreats and support groups that parents could learn more about?
Sure. We don't do necessarily retreats or summer camps, but this time of the year, we get calls every day about what are the summer camps for kids with disabilities. So we certainly give them that list as well. We do have a NICU support group. So if your child was in the NICU in the last year or so, we get those parents together to share experiences. But think of our support groups as one-on-one. So if you're a parent, we can pair you up with another parent who might have an older child with the same disability. You give us the criteria, and we have about 300 trained parents throughout the state that we can match that parent up with. And then that parent leader, that experienced parent, will call the parent that I matched up every other week for a couple of months and answer their questions and talk about their experiences. And 99% of those parents who are paired up love that experience because it really helps them. And I talk to somebody who have been in their shoes, so to speak. We can also do that with youth. So we work with Diverse Ability, who has the Arizona Youth Leadership, and they have a bunch of trained youth. And so if I run into a parent whose youth might be helpful to be paired up, we can do that as well. So that's really where we think that our support groups are. We do run what we call summer school for parents. So one Saturday in June, we offer about 6 or 8 workshops, and parents can come for a whole day and learn about positive behavior support or IEPs or guardianship or anything along those lines. So those are probably the closest that we get to retreats or summer camps, but we always have the list of all of the special needs summer camps all over the state, and we can get parents connected to those so they can at least call and find out about that.
Wonderful. Such great information. Trying to look here through my questions just to make sure. Yes, I've answered, or you guys have answered all of these that I've asked here. Great. So we have definitely a lot of time left. So I'm just going to ask one thing of each of our panelists, as unless there's other questions that come through. But is there one thing that I didn't ask that you'd like to share with parents who really just don't know a whole lot about your program? You've given us such great information on ways to connect with you, where the information is accessible. But anything that I did not ask you that you would really just love for parents to hear about your program and or your agency? And I'll start with Chrissy.
Yeah, there are a few things that I would like to share. I know oftentimes parents feel overwhelmed by the amount of appointments that they have lined up for their child, and sometimes we are just another appointment. We are flexible with parents when it comes to the scheduling of home visits. We try our very best to accommodate parents in their schedules. We try to accommodate your schedules versus parents accommodating our schedules. We can meet in the evenings, we can meet on the weekends. And we've been trying to be respectful of parents as they're feeling overwhelmed with their employment. And sometimes we will even adjust our schedule. Rather than meeting for 1 hour, we can meet for 30 minutes. We do try to tailor our schedule to meet the parents' needs. And occasionally parents will sometimes need a break from our services, And in the meantime, while they're on a break, we will reach out to them on a weekly basis to provide them with resources or with whatever time frame that has been decided between the family and the deaf mentor. We make sure that parents have all of the resources that they need based on their family situation and based on their child. We don't want families to be overwhelmed by the amount of information they're given. Sometimes it's difficult to watch that as families need to take a step back, but we are supportive of that. In birth to 3, there are more options. We can meet monthly, we can meet weekly, and in the preschool program, we can only meet with families twice a month because their child is in an ASL environment in school already. So they already have access to language, and the preschools are hosting events as well. So we try to balance that out with the amount of time we spend with families. All I want to say is don't be afraid. If you have any questions, ask. If you feel overwhelmed, let us know. We will be there, and we treat families just like our own.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chrissy. We'll move on to Megan.
This is Megan, and gosh, Sonia, I think you've asked such great questions. I don't know what else to fill in. I will just say, between myself and Pat and Amy, we have over 50 years of experience in working with families and educators and children who are deafblind. And if we don't know the answer to a question, we know lots of people who might or who do. I work with Kathy and Chrissy. We're a pretty tight-knit community when it comes to low incidence disabilities because we have to be. That said, if there's not a connection that we can make either very much locally or statewide, I do have access to a national network of families of deafblind children and youth. And there's lots of opportunities all across really the world for families to connect to one another. And I'm here to facilitate those connections and make sure, families are building relationships if that's something they want. To other families going through or experiencing or having the same questions as they do.
Thank you, Megan.
And I wanted to say that families who suspect there's something going on with their child can absolutely give us a call. We talk to parents every day. There's something going on. They're not walking when they should or talking when they should, or the doctor says it'll be okay, but I don't believe that. Parents are the experts on their child, and they may not know exactly what's going on, but they know something. And I would tell them, pick up the phone and give us a call. Or if they think their child might be eligible for special ed and they want to ask questions about that, or my child was turned down and could they be eligible for a 504 plan? So whether it's in school or not, before or after a child is in school, we're birth to 26 years of age, but the parents can call and say, I suspect something is going on. Tell me how to get them evaluated to see if they need an IEP, or see if they're eligible for Division of Developmental Disability in Arizona long-term care. So it's not just parents whose child have been diagnosed with a disability by an MD. It could be anybody that calls us that suspects that something is going on. So thanks for asking that question. I didn't fit that in before, but I want those parents to know that they can pick up the phone and call us, and we'd be happy to answer their questions and get them connected with the right resources, whether it might be doctors or something else that might help them then get their child a diagnosis or something like that.
Thank you so much. This is just such great information. And Kathy, you just shared a really good point that I'd like to really, close this presentation with. You guys have really provided such great information. But I think it's one of those things is that when parents suspect or parents have questions, we know that there are quite a few children who have a late onset of deafness or vision loss, or have a combined vision loss, and or may have a diagnosis that don't necessarily know are associated with the hearing difference or any type of change in vision. And so I think it's really important to also understand those things that come about when a child has a sudden onset of deafness or a sudden onset of vision loss. How do we guide those families with the resources that we have available? We're familiar with them, but sometimes parents just don't know where to start. And I think this is just such great information to be able to share with families who are trying to navigate all of the different systems, as well as just being on that journey with their child and their family on an everyday basis. So I thank you all for the great information that you have shared here today. We are definitely going to be posting this to our website and to our YouTube, making it accessible to everyone in Spanish, and also it's here available in ASL. So thank you again for all of you. I don't have any other questions in the chat here. I've tried to make sure to monitor here to make sure that I didn't miss anything. But it looks like we'll be able to end about 20 minutes earlier than anticipated. So I really appreciate all of your time, and have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, Megan.